The Deshaun Watson deal, obviously something was deeper down when you mentioned that on this show. And then Deshaun Watson's, I guess, the number one issue right now. They still beat the Niners without him, which is crazy.
That was impressive.
Addition by subtraction is a real thing. I've been saying that for years. It might be a better thing without him. But anyway, where you at with him? Like, as far as what seriousness of his issue?
Yeah, so they finally gave us some clarity because this team is weird. The information they release is a little fishy. Remember, they initially said, "Oh, we cleared him. He was okay to go." So either the MRI was poor, which happens, or they didn't do an ultrasound, which I find a little surprising, or they weren't overly impressed and said, "Hey, just suck it up and play. We owe you. We give you a lot of money." But either way, they basically said, "Hey, like, you can play." Obviously, didn't play. That was the DTR game. Now we go through a bye. And it's been, 3 weeks? So, over 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And now we finally hear he's got a subscapularis injury. The subscap is this front one right here. It's kind of the one that goes across. But it also goes, it basically reels up and attaches to the inside of the back of the shoulder blade. So like on the inside of it, closer to your front. And think of it as a coil. So it kind of coils. And this is what you use for across your body. Like your seatbelt, like the seatbelt motion. That's what I call it. So the problem is, if this is, so there's a couple different grades of injury. You can have a contusion, which is just bruising. You can have inflammation of the tendon, which is tendonitis. If that doesn't calm down, that becomes tendinopathy or chronic changes to the tendon. Then you have injuries, grade 1 strain, grade 2, grade 3 is full thickness. Initially, they called it a bruise, which is just bruising. Painful, but usually resolves relatively quickly, or at least enough to function. That hasn't happened. So now they say it's a subscapularis and there's an injury to it. Okay, now we hear more. How bad is the injury? Is this a grade 1? Is this a grade 2? It's unlikely to be a grade 3 because they would have already ruled them out, and then that would have already been surgery and a big deal. So if it's a grade 1, okay, fine. But steroids are not going to help this. Injectables like your cortisone or whatever. You can put PRP in there, but it's not going to work fast enough, or it's going to create a ton of pain, which is helpful, but not in 2 weeks to get it back on the field. You can put stem cells in there, and depending on which one you can use. Rehab is very important for this, but is it fast enough to allow him to throw 20, 30 times? And then if his arm gets hit, can he handle that? Can he handle landing on it? These are all things that he needs to be able to do it in practice before you can even contemplate throwing 20, 30 times in a game, 40 times in a game. So that's part of the concern. Is he coming back this week? I have no idea. I do not know. I'm happy we got clarity, but I don't know where this is going.
What about moving north to the Minnesota? Justin Jefferson, I know he's a big, a lot of people out there, fantasy and otherwise, are looking to figure out what's wrong with him. I've heard now 6 weeks hamstring. How serious is this?
So I called this a 1.5 to 2. And people are like, well, there isn't a half a grade. Well, if you look at it under ultrasound, which is what I do all the time, sometimes they look worse than a 1, but they don't look real bad, which is a 2. So it's kind of a 1.5, whatever. Grade 2s they don't heal quickly. It's more like 6 weeks than it is 4 weeks, and it can be closer to 8 weeks. Now, the problem is, you really don't have a whole lot to play for. Cousins already basically said he's not getting traded and he's not going to waive his clause, which is fine. But now you're thinking, hey, almost like JSN did in his last year at college, how risky is it to suffer a further injury and potentially be a negative effect on my future contract situation?
Probably got a call. Yeah, I get what he's saying. Yeah, go ahead.
You've already proven that you're elite. There's no question about that, right? There's no question, hey, can he do it? Like, the kids are unbelievable. So now the question becomes, can he, if he comes back, I'm assuming he's going to be the same player, but he'll have increased risk of re-injury. That's the nature of hamstrings. Is he coming back immediately at 4 weeks? Is he coming back closer to 6 or 7 weeks? And for fantasy, how much do you have to give up to get him? And how many games are you actually going to be able to use him? Because they still have a bye, I believe, too. So it's like, that's part of the tricky part. And if you said, hey, they're 2-7 7. We're shutting him down for the year. Would I be surprised? Probably not. Cooper Kupp was shut down last year. He could have came back.
It's like, why risk it? You have nothing to play for, and then they're already talking about your quarterback possibly getting traded. He might not even be there. Just a lot of factors that goes into it. Doc, I got to ask you this too before you go. People in the chat are asking, how serious is this Aaron Rodgers comeback? I saw you posted something the other day when he was like throwing the ball around pregame, and you might have said even yourself that this is crazy what he's doing, like crazy in a good, like the way that we've never seen with someone with an Achilles injury. Like, are you surprised to see him out here just throwing the ball around and move around so freely right now after 3 weeks of a surgery? Oh, he probably couldn't hear me there. I think he was trying to move his mics around a little bit there. But, yeah, I mean, the Aaron Rodgers situation is crazy. If Doc can hop back on, would love to hear his point on there. I know he sometimes has to hop off and get going. But
yeah, I don't know if you saw, he posted a guy. So one of his partners, there he is right there. There he is.
Yeah, there's a technical difficulty. I don't know what happened, but I couldn't hear you all.
No problem. Well, I was asking you about the Aaron Rodgers, man. I think you might have posted something the other day, like when the video leaked, or not leaked, the video was out of him throwing the ball pregame. And I think even you were kind of surprised and shocked to see him out there. Like, how wild is this right now, Doc? I don't like, he's moving around. He looked pretty good for an Achilles surgery.
Oh, he's looking, he breaking barrier. He breaking crazy. So I sent JB a video from my partner yesterday, who does a lot of these. He does a ton of Achilles. He's a high level foot and ankle specialist at Rothman, and I wanted his thoughts on it because this is his niche. This is exactly what he does. And he was saying, like, I'll let him, you can see the video on my YouTube or on the timeline, but in general,
quarterback
this is super impressive. Yeah.
Well, you can talk over him because I know I'm going to put up the video where he kind of shows what's going on with his right there.
Yeah. So he's talking about the speed bridge and the technique. He's talking about why he's able to do this faster. Basically, they sew the two ends together, and then they basically put a full suture, which is the kind of blue one around it to take some of that stress off. Now, and eventually what he'll talk about is the dynamics of the different positions. So the fact that he doesn't have to be a running back, he doesn't have to be a wide receiver, he doesn't have to be explosive off the line like a D end. That's part of the problem. All those guys rarely come back sooner because they can't get back to that explosiveness repetitively. Rodgers just needs to be able to move around. He's also talking about something called blood flow restriction, or BFR, which is an old school Japanese rehab technique called katsu that helps to decrease the demand on the tissue while increasing the healing by basically putting a blood pressure cuff on it. And that allows to only put in, say, 5 pounds of stress, but you get 20 pounds of healing, we'll call it. So it increases it. And they're doing grass and they're doing dry needling. They're doing, you name it. If it's possible, he will be doing it. I wouldn't be surprised if they put stem cells in there too, either then or in the future. But this recovery is bananas, like straight up. And part of the concern is that if he comes back, which is bananas in its own right, but I don't want players to make this expectation of normal. Like Cam Akers. Hey, he came back in 5 months. We can do it. Like, no. Like, yes, just because he came back in 5 months, look at his stats. He looked awful. Right. He did not look good. Look where he's at now. Like, he did not look good. So, like, that's part of my concern is that, I want to see him come back. The Jets paid massive upset the other night. But first of all, is it going to be relevant, right? That's the first question. And second question is, he's setting a bar that is way beyond anything realistic. But that's okay. That's good. I like that. But this is a very perfect and unique situation, right? Right. And I think that's part of it. But I love to see what he's doing, and I want him to keep doing it. The only thing I have a little concerns about is two things, and Dr. Parekh talked about this. One, stretching that new tendon too quickly, which will lose the laxity and be detrimental. And two, re-tearing it.
Gotcha.
So those are the two problems. They're both relatively low. The stretching is more common than the re-tear. But in general, but I think it's going to be, super dope if he can even sniff the possibility of returning in December or January. That'd be insane.
It'd be nuts. It'd be nuts to see that, JB.
He's coming back. I'm telling you, he is.